Welcome back to the Real Talk Corner podcast, where we dive deep into personal journeys and topics that inspire and transform us on a mind, body, soul, and spirit level. Today, we're joined by a truly inspiring guest, Mike Vera, a board certified health coach and a podcast host with a mission to revolutionize the way we think about wellness. Mike is passionate about not just getting people healthy, but awakening them to a whole new way of living, one that's vibrant, empowered, and sustainable. Get ready for some life changing insights as we dive deep into his journey and the powerful tools he uses to help people take control of their health and future. Let's get into it. The Real Talk Corner. We back. We in the building. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fighting my way through the darkness where the wicked don't rest. Conscious aware, truth I dare, shields tied to my chest. My tenacity gon' put these motherfuckers to the test. High priestess of fire, alchemistic desire. I stay manifesting shit, even when I am tired. You can call me amazing, by the bricks I be laying, but you'll never call me lazy, cause my vice are devastating. In the league of my own, spitting real talk energy. I know a little something about a thing called synergy. This is so ready, throw a sending masses awaken me, listen up, cause we about to set your mind, body, and soul free. Mike Vera here with me today, a board certified health coach. I'm going to let him talk about himself and let you know what he does before we get into our topic today.
Yeah, well, I am a board certified health coach, which is quite different from a lot of people who call themselves a health coach. So I've gone through the proper education and training to really have the skills and credentials that it takes to help people as best as I can implement healthy habits, change their lifestyle. It's something I have a lot of experience in, but maybe more importantly, it's something that I really love to do. I am on a mission to make the world a healthier and more awake place. And so this is something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, I was reading like the bio that you sent me. I kind of want to go through a couple things with you because I like what you were saying about that everyone's a coach. I saw the part where you were talking about propaganda campaigns, and I wanted to talk about that because it is so easy to be caught in that and then get sucked into, the latest fad or whatever it is that, somebody is telling you. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't realize that we are constantly bombarded by influence campaigns, propaganda, marketing, just constant nudges in our lives. Every time we open up our phone, we turn on our TV, and even when we talk to our friends, these are just things that we don't talk about at all. We often don't think about at all.
Right.
And really the question is, how can we make healthy decisions or even proper decisions if we aren't acknowledging these attacks really on our mind? And those attacks are meant to influence our decisions. And, a lot of people hear propaganda and that doesn't affect me. I know better. Well, here's a perfect example of an influence effort that has impacted all of us. We go into Target, the store, and we say to ourselves, I'm only going to buy 2 things. I swear that's all I need, 2 things. And then we leave and we have a cart full of things. Well, what happened there? That's not an accident, right? There are corporate executives that sit in a boardroom figuring out exactly the best way to arrange the products, the colors, the messaging, the lighting. Every detail is deliberately planned out to influence you towards their own agenda.
Right.
Well, then it would follow. I mean, if they can be successful in influencing you in a specific way, well, we can actually be successful in influencing ourselves in a specific way also.
Right. I do believe that. I think it's crazy when I did a little research. I like to learn stuff. So not everyone likes to learn stuff, but I like to learn stuff. So going back and realizing how even the diet fads came into existence and how all of that was just kind of bull you know, they were just slapping labels on it saying it's diet and it's healthy for you. And here you go. And you got people, running around drinking diet soda thinking it is better for them. And and we've been in this for definitely a couple decades now. We've been going through this. And I think that coming to this place to really look at, is this person really going to help me? Is this person just seeking my money? Is this just another one of those things? So how can you, because I mean, I've been sucked into all kinds of, I mean, I probably
Mhm.
did every diet that you could think of from, but how do you stop from getting sucked in? Because it sounds so good, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first step is kind of what I touched on already, and that's to acknowledge that these things are going on, because it's hard to identify propaganda or even marketing
Mhm.
if, we're just not thinking about that sort of thing. So
Right.
that's number one. Further, I would actually encourage people and challenge people to seek out different opinions than the ones they hold currently. And this can be very uncomfortable for many people because, and this is driven by the ego for every human being, we like to believe the things we believe. Hey, this is what shapes my worldview. I like thinking like this way, and it's just how I've always thought.
Right.
And so, it does take a certain amount of resilience to challenge those beliefs, and even critical thinking, which is often lost in society. And it just takes looking at some Facebook comments to see the evidence for that being true.
Yeah.
So putting actual critical thought into exploring different viewpoints and just doing the best that you can to determine what's right for you. And we're not always going to be right. Nobody's perfect, but at
Mhm.
least when we make an effort to seek out the truth actively, we can start to get closer to it.
Right, definitely. I liked also because you talked about the persuasion mindset. So, how do we get more towards that?
Well, I see three pillars of influence, and this goes along with the persuasion mindset. So, one we covered, and that is, being aware, learning to recognize influence. Number two is, okay, we know how to recognize it. We understand a little bit about how it works. So, how can we influence ourselves? Because if other people can do it, we can do it too. And then the third pillar, once those first two are mastered, how can I be ethical and deliberate in the influence that I have in the world? Because whether or not we realize it, everything we do is leaving some kind of imprint on the people around us. And any parent with a toddler knows this very well, because they have to watch their mouth, they have to watch their actions, because they are like a sponge and they pick it up. And that's just one example of how people can be influenced by the things that we do, whether we intend to or not. And so those three pillars, being aware of the influence against us, being aware of how we can influence ourselves, and being aware of how we can influence others. And those are really the three different important areas around influence. And once we think about that and we start to recognize it and even put it into practice, we can really cultivate this mindset that can really work to our advantage.
Yeah, you definitely have to want it. You definitely have to want
Yeah.
to, even if it's a small, tiny bit of want to change, want to grow in a different way. If you have a little bit of it, then you can start to inch your way into a different mindset. I agree with you on the ego. The ego is a big part of how we get stuck, right? And this is
Yeah.
the only way to do it. There's only this way, and I can't do it any other way, and I'm stuck here. And as soon as you get out of that, you realize, like, oh wow, there's more. What is Avanta Health Optimization? What is that? Let's talk about
Avantia Health Optimization is my health coaching business. So I am a board certified health coach, and I have people on my team. And the thing about health coaching, at least how we do it, it's very individual to the person and their goals. So there's no cookie cutter program where it's like, hey, just follow what's on this document and go on
that.
your way and do that. We meet with individuals regularly. The first session's just $1, so you can try it out and we can figure out what are your goals and how can we help you get there. And a big part of it's accountability, because we meet regularly once a week, and I ask for feedback all the time. And we offer tools, and we have the best exercises to help you think about things in a certain way and set goals in the best way. But time and time again, accountability is what I hear from people that really helps. And not only that, having someone to really listen to them and bounce ideas off of,
Mhm.
because that's quite different from just having these thoughts. I mean, all of us have had thoughts about things we want to accomplish, whether that's health, life, business, money, you name it. We have these thoughts. And it's often not until we articulate these things out loud and even say them to another person where things can really start to click and it becomes more real. And to be honest, a lot of the people in our lives, whether it's our friends, family, or anyone else, usually they're not very good at listening, and I say that with all due respect. Because listening is an actual skill that takes
Yeah.
training, and most people, when they're in a conversation, they're kind of just waiting for the other person to stop talking so that I can say what I want to say, and you got to hear how right I am. But health coaches, we come from a place of non-judgment, so we're not gonna really judge you in what you're doing. We're not necessarily even going to tell you this is what you should be doing, because that's kind of judgmental also.
Right.
So between accountability and listening and getting to say these things out loud, it can be a very powerful process. And it's something that, we have testimonials. We've helped a lot of people. And yeah, it's fun work too.
I like it. It sounds like you have a little bit of like counseling within it. So, especially because a lot of people say it's personalized and then they send you to an app, and in the app, you're dealing with the app most of the time and you barely talk to, the person that supposedly is personalizing your your plan. So
Yeah.
you guys aren't sending someone to just go on an app and follow the instructions.
That's a good point. And because now with the evolution of artificial intelligence, a lot of these companies like Noom, for instance, I mean, they're trying to outsource as much as they can. So you don't talk to a human being barely at all.
Right.
And even when you do, their answers are through a text message that is generated by AI.
Right.
So that human connection is lost. That's something that we value at Avantia Health Optimization, having that human interaction and not just talking to some robot that doesn't care about you at all and doesn't understand you. So we do take the time to understand you and listen, not only to what you're saying on a surface level, but even more deeply. Things we're trying to connect dots that you might never notice, and that can be a very powerful experience for people.
Right. Because I do believe mind, body, soul. So I feel like you can't have one without the other. Like you can go and you can try, but there are those other hidden details that can be stuck there that you don't even know that are hindering your path versus helping you, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
I like because you have the cognitive psychology. So I feel like that is what definitely helps you as who you are. Because mind power is everything. We know the mind is one of those things that if you get control of it, you can do amazing things. If you let it control you, you can be stuck and trapped. I'm a psychology major right now.
Oh,
So
nice.
definitely I love how people just watching how people think. Why do people do what they do, right?
Yeah.
But I've even tried this. I actually tried this with a trainer a few years ago. The trainer was like, "Yeah, personalized," and sent me to the app. And at that point, I was still doing a lot of healing, and there was a lot of things within me I still needed to heal that was holding on to the weight, right? So, I was in the gym every day. I was doing like 1,200 calories. I was everything that he was saying I needed to do, right? And then he's like, "You should be losing more weight." And he was
Mm.
kind of mad at me because what I can't be his poster child next, right? And I kept telling him it's because of something else. It's something else deeper that I need to do first. Because I could get in the gym, I could do all these things. But if I don't work on the healing aspect that's really got this weight on me, it's not going to go anywhere. And so I did it for 90 days so I could prove a point on a spiritual level and a healing level and say, once you get to that point of awareness, right? Oh shit, this is why I'm carrying this weight. It's not just because I can't eat right. It's not because I can't make healthy choices. It's this fear or this underlining whatever happened to me. Then you got to work on that, and that sometimes can take some time too. So it sounds like you guys incorporate that as well, to where if someone does have an underlining issue that might be towards their mental health or a trauma, that they can go and seek help and get help with that.
Absolutely. That's very important, because there's the motivation element behind it. Some people say, what is your why? And I guess from a psychology perspective, technical level, you would say, how is this framed?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, and I get this all the time, people who come to me, they want to lose weight. And it's like, all right, let's dig a little deeper. What makes you want to lose weight? It's like, well, I gained weight and I feel bad about myself and it's making me depressed. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I understand that. We can work on that. But, how successful and really how sustainable can this be if it's framed from this negative, self-loathing perspective often?
Right.
And so then the question becomes, what are some other ways to think about it? Like how, if we were to look at this more positively, what would that look like? And that is very often like, well, I get to feel good from doing this, or my body, some people say my body's my temple and I want to treat it as such, or, hey, I'm physically able to do this exercise and that's a blessing. And so I get to respect myself in that way. Instead of downing myself, I get to respect myself in that way. And just that little shift in mentality can be very powerful in determining, how consistent we are with something. And motivation often just becomes no longer a factor. It's not like, oh my God, I got to drag myself to the gym. People just automatically, after that shift happens,
Yeah.
they become more excited. They build momentum. Then the momentum turns into habits and then it's automatic. And then they're just set for life. And that can be really life-changing.
I like what you said of forming habits, because I remember when I made a decision, like I was like, I don't want to diet anymore, because I had did diets. I'd go up and down, all of that stuff. And then I finally got to a place where I said, I want to change lifestyle.
Mm.
So then the mindset was not, I want to diet and lose weight. It was, now I want to change my lifestyle. And that's what caused me to do research and sit down and then look at myself and my path and go, how did I get here? Right? Where did these unhealthy habits come from? Where did they stem from? A lot of it was from childhood.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, stuff stems from childhood. You don't realize it, even to the point of something simple as eat everything on your plate. And you don't notice that this belief system is hidden within you, and you're sitting here and the portions have just gotten bigger. So what are you doing? The portions got bigger, but you're still trying to finish your plate. And you have this urge, and really have this urge to finish everything on your plate and not even realize that it's a thing, but the awareness comes into it. So those things are crazy, just to sit back and go, wow, I didn't even know that this is from there. So now let me tackle that. That kind of helps a lot too, right?
Yeah. And good for you for doing that self-reflection, because a lot of people sometimes maybe they just don't think about it. Maybe they're even
Mhm.
scared to do that. But when we're in a coaching, and of course, if this comes up naturally, we will dive into that sort of thing. And some people, as they make progress, I heard this just yesterday, actually. This lady that I was working with, she said, you know what? I used to just kind of accept my situation as it was. It's not a great situation. And I felt like I couldn't lose weight and I couldn't motivate myself to exercise. And I just kind of sat with that.
Right.
But, the more progress I made, and it even started slow, little bits of progress in the beginning, and that kind of snowballed. And now I really feel like I have more control over my own life. I'm not the victim of my habits. I'm actually, the captain here. I can control my habits, and it's not always easy. It's going to take
Right.
effort and work, and there will be obstacles and challenges and setbacks. But
Mhm.
as long as I remain determined and I keep moving forward, I can accomplish a lot more than I previously thought I could.
Oh, definitely. That's a huge one. But you have to be willing to look at it, where you have to be willing to look at your, not just your choices. And I know there was even a point when I used to blame, what was out there. Blame society, that you blame the blame game. It's everybody else's fault but yours, right? And then you're like, wait a minute, it's really not cheaper to eat out than buy food. Like it's kind of hand in hand now. They're all the same. There's no cheaper way to go. You just really have to look at it. What do I want to put in my body? What do I want to? And the thing is, food is everything. When we look at energy, I'm sure you guys talk about that, that even having the energy to get up, what are you putting in? Brain food, food for not just sustenance or feel good food or comfort food, you know those kind of things, when you sit down and really look at it. So that all plays a part. Very important. You also have a podcast.
Yeah, Healthy and Awake podcast. It's the best health show out there right now. And that's because I talk to some of the leading doctors, medical doctors across the world, and other experts as well, PhDs, business owners. But
Mhm.
the main focus is medical doctors. And really, the theme of the show is that we challenge the status quo. We want people to be not just healthy, but healthy and awake. And that means a lot of different things to different people. But as far as mainstream health goes, we've pretty much been fed a single narrative for the past few decades. And that is, let's wait till you get sick and then we'll start to look at you more seriously. And usually that approach involves pharmaceuticals, and that's about it. We might tell you to exercise, we might tell you to eat right, but you're on your own.
Right.
And believe me, it gets that's just the bullet points there. It gets a lot worse than that when you look at the grasp that the pharmaceutical industry has on medical education, the medical system, and everything around health today, influencing doctors themselves with
Yeah.
propaganda in a million
If
different
you believe
ways.
it.
I mean, it's so broken. I was actually, my dad is a doctor. I respect him so much. He influenced me massively growing up, and I wanted to be just like him. And I
Mhm.
still do in many ways. But, the older I got, the more I saw the brokenness of this system. And I thought, I can't help people the way that I want to in the way the system is today.
Right.
And that is kind of what created this emergence of health coaching to fill the gaps. And
Right.
even with that, the pharmaceutical industry is trying to get their tentacles into health coaching so that people come to a health coaching session and it's actually the secret agenda to sell them on pharmaceuticals and normalize things that shouldn't be normal.
Right.
And so I'm really glad to be where I'm at. And not only me, I'm not just trying to pat myself on the back, but I'm really proud to be a health coach amongst other health coaches who see what's going on and have taken the effort to really do something that's not easy, because health coaching is still emerging. It's still relatively new. A lot of people think that I'm a personal trainer, which is not at all what I do. And because of those reasons, it's very challenging to fight against this status quo health
Right.
system that we're in that's not really serving people as well as it could be. And so
Right.
all those things that I just mentioned is a big part of what we do on Healthy and Awake podcast.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is so true. I was a medical assistant for 10 years and I worked, side by side with the doctors and they were phenomenal. I don't have anything bad to say about them, but I left because of that, realizing that it was a sick care model, we weren't really helping anyone. And people were taking millions of pills and it was like, so, they would come in and they're taking this pill, but then all the side effects from that. So they need something else to help them with all the side effects from that. And it was just on and on and on and on. And I was just like, there has to be more that I'm able to do versus just sit here and watch this, right? Just really watching these people die on medications, 20 medications. And so that's why I went on my spiritual path and kind of just found other things and just changing the way I thought about things. And you do sit back and you're like, it's not the doctor's fault. They're taught that way. So everything that they think is true and what they know, that's how they're taught.
Yeah.
But we there's no prevention. Their prevention is like, let's give you some vaccines.
Yep.
Let's get you a colonoscopy. Let's get you a mammogram. Let's do blood work. That's all the prevention that they can offer. There's nothing
More
else.
billables.
Right. And so the companies would push all of this. And I'm like, so we're just focused on numbers. We're just focused on how many colonoscopies we can push, how many flu vaccines we can push. And so I just, at the end of that time, I just was like, this is just not it. We're not really helping anyone. And we grow up thinking doctors know everything. It's sad that we don't know about our own bodies. So we have to go to someone else that we think knows about our body, right? But they don't know everything. They're going based on what they were taught. And there's so much other aspects to this that play a big key. So it's just, I love what you're saying and I love what you guys talk about because I feel like not everyone becomes aware to this and not
Yeah.
everyone starts to go on that path and they're still stuck in that kind of trap of the doctors are telling me this, I have to take this. And I'm someone who doesn't like to take meds. I'm not going to take meds if I don't have to. And I feel like we don't have to. There's so many things, plants, all of these things that are here that are just natural that we can do as well as changing our lifestyles, right?
It's actually, I would say it's worse than many people not being aware. And that's true. So many people are just not aware, and
Mhm.
maybe they have the potential to be aware or awake, But there are a lot of people who actively don't want to be awake and aware to all this stuff,
True.
because what you described is much easier. I mean, if I don't have to think about my lifestyle, if I don't have to change my habits, if I don't need to understand my body, and the answer to all my problems is seeing a doctor who thinks that pills are the best answer for me, and even the doctor, it's easy for, they don't want to think very much further about this either, because they show up to work, they look at the screen, and I'm maybe generalizing a little bit because there are a lot of awake doctors out there.
Yeah.
But for both the patient and the doctor, the current system that we're in is much easier than doing the hard work to examine and change your lifestyle. It's really as easy as it gets, and you don't have to think much about it.
Right.
Well, okay, my blood pressure's high, my cholesterol's high, I have diabetes, I have chronic illness, I'm overweight. Whatever those issues are, those can be changed with putting in some work. But why would I do that if I have this low-hanging fruit in front of me that is presented as the answer to all my problems and essentially the holy grail? It's
Right.
really unfortunate, because in that way, the system preys on people who don't know any better, or people who are just very comfortable in believing these things that might not be true at all.
Right. It's crazy. I mean, I love where I'm at in my path, and I love what you're talking about. And I do think you guys need to go and listen to his podcast, because I think they're going to get a lot of information. But from what I've seen in this past, I've been in my spiritual path. I'm more of a spiritual healer, so I'm someone who helps people get through some things and heals. And we touch a lot of different of these topics, and people with ailments. And I'm not a doctor, nor do I claim to be a doctor, and I don't treat anyone as a physician, but their ailments will come up. Those things will come up. And I know for me particularly, I used to have horrible back pain, especially my lower back pain. And I think in 2017, I actually went to the hospital. It was so bad, and they saw that I had like my L5 and L4 were like already almost degenerative, and I was like in my 30s, like how the hell does this happen? And then they saw like my sacrum hadn't been formed. That was a birth defect that we didn't know about. So I was always going to have back problems. But when I went through this of just opening myself up to what on a spiritual level, what that means, and back pain, goes sometimes into not feeling like you're supported, right? So when I sat with that, I've been someone who's been on my own. In my life, I've had me. My parents, they weren't great parents. So I've been a child who grew up, I can only depend on me. Once I started to sit with that and heal those parts, I haven't had back pain since 2020. In 2020, I sat with someone who did a past life regression, and I actually do those now. I do past life regressions and stuff like that. But I actually did that and sat down and uncovered that part of me. And since then, no back problem, and it's
Good
just,
for you.
it's funny how there's again, so many things that we don't know holistically and otherwise. And I believe psychology, I think both of them can merge, as I love holistic healing and I love psychology. I think they both can merge together and really help us uncover some things that we do and why we do them. And then also help us to heal and move forward and let a lot of this stuff go. But a lot of our ailments, I speak to people and it's like, oh, my legs are hurting. It's like, well, what do you do? I'm at work and then I go home, and then you just sit and you don't do nothing. Okay. Your body is telling you to get up. Your body's like, I want to do something else. Let's go do something fun. And I think pushing yourself to just run to the gym is like whatever, but find something that you love to do. Like not just, oh, I gotta go to the gym. I have to go get on the treadmill. I have to, because then you're what kind of energy are you really in to make that happen, right?
We are in the midst of what many people might call a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
And, a lot of problems in the world today, obviously. And I ask people their thoughts. What do you think's driving all this? And time again, I'll hear, oh, it's greed. They just want your money. And okay, maybe that plays a role. There are greedy people out there,
Right.
but I just don't think that is the full picture. And I do think there is a coordinated spiritual attack. And when I say that, I mean basically the diminishing of the human spirit. And
Mhm.
if you have this broken spirit, how can you be thriving?
Right.
A lot of those people are just surviving, but we want you to be thriving. And
Right.
so, if you're in the midst of a spiritual battle, that means you're being attacked.
Mhm.
You cannot be healthy, you cannot be thriving if you're not defending yourself against attacks. you are going to allow yourself to have that spirit diminished. And it's tough. Not everyone's a warrior,
Right.
but unfortunately, the landscape that we're in today, you kind of have to be if you want to be successful on any level, whether we're talking about health or even just getting along with your family. I mean, very
Right.
simple things. So it's a very important thing to talk about.
Oh yeah. Some of your health is cutting out some of that family. So
So yeah, oh yeah,
I definitely teach selfishness and I teach cutting cords with everyone who is toxic. Look, I'm not into, I don't care if they're your mother, whoever, that whole thing of, oh, that's your parents, you only get one. Some people, that's enough. They don't need any more, right?
yeah,
Not everyone has a good relationship or even a relationship that's worth repairing to begin with. And that's more or less what I teach is like, it's okay to let go, because sometimes that's actually the best thing that you can do for both of you. And that person's maybe second chance is with someone else, not with you, because there's too much, stuff to do. And in trying to heal, sometimes it makes it worse trying to heal with someone that you just can't. So I'm like, all of these levels, and spiritually, I do believe I'm not into the whole good versus evil shit as far as spirituality battles go. I'm kind of on a different lane with that, because I do believe we create our own demons. We create our own, a lot of our own misery and our suffering we create in the mind, right? Um, but I do believe when you look on the cosmic aspect of it, there's definitely something at play, and there's all of these lessons for each of us to learn wherever you're at in your path, right? You're doing what you're doing because this is the path for you and this is what you're bringing to the table, right? I'm over here doing what I'm doing because this is the path and what we're bringing to the table. And then we'll filter out and it will go like waves, to other people. But there's these beautiful lessons in all of it, the experiences of it all, right? We could look at it bad, we could look at it horrible, or we could say, wow, that was not so nice experience. Maybe the next ones that I want in my life, I want those to be more joyful or happy, or I want to be able to run or climb stairs, or do some rock climbing or something. But changing that mindset about it, of how you look at it, and not just the whole bad and evil, the devil's coming for me, or
sure, yeah,
that kind of thing, more so of, okay, that was not a nice experience, what do I want next? And putting to play of, what does that look like? That's why I said I want to change my lifestyle. I want just a healthier lifestyle, not go diet and lose weight. No, I want to have stuff that I can implement and keep, because if I can't keep it, what am I doing? you
yeah.
know
Well, if I may, I agree with some of what you said, and respectfully see things a little differently, actually. And maybe I hope this isn't too heavy for your show here, but when you look at the history of things, eugenics is a very real effort that many people have tried, and even people alive today have
Right.
expressed views that can be seen as those of someone who supports eugenics.
Mm,
And so, the people skeptical, fairly so, would say, well, it's not the same. Obviously, it's different from Germany, and what they did. To today's landscape is quite different from that. But I think if you look closely, you'll find that our environment has set us up to fail. And it seems like no matter what direction we go in, no matter what decision we make, we are surrounded completely by these low hanging fruits that diminish our health in some way. And I call this death by 1,000 cuts.
mm,
So the food that we eat, the water we drink, the air that we breathe, even the packaging, even toothpaste, you name it, every decision that we make potentially can harm us in some way. And that can make these discussions difficult because they can look at one of those variables. They go, look, okay, maybe pesticides are a little harmful, but maybe they're not going to completely kill you overnight. Fair enough.
right.
But what about the cumulative effect of pesticides and endocrine disruptors from
Yeah.
BPA and the water bottles and, questionable things in the air? And I can go on and on. It's like every angle that you look at, we're being attacked in some way. And I do think it's more than just greed. I think it's more than just incompetence. I think when you look at the people at the top and some of the things they say and believe, I
Mm.
do think this is deliberate. And many people would call that evil. And it certainly feels that way to me.
I mean, when I say that, and yeah, I not that there aren't evil people. I just don't have that concept of like the devil is behind it all, that
Sure. Yeah, me either.
but yeah, people, we have choices. We all have it within us to be that. We can be evil or we can be kind, right? We can care about others or we can be selfish and only care about ourselves. And I feel like we all have that. And of course, I know people think money is evil or money is gonna, I think money just shows your true character.
Yeah.
Money, you're either going to be a nice person or you're going to be a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I do agree with you on the outside source. I feel like we've gotten here as a society, though, right? And there's a lot of small people that don't have that power. We don't have that power yet. I'll say yet, right? Because if we really came together, we'd have power to change things. But we haven't had that real power to make those type of changes. Where because when you think about it, me and my daughter went through this last year. I started a garden, and it was like, okay, I'm going to grow my own garden where, there's no pesticides in it. I'm going to do all of those things and have, so I can eat my own vegetables, which is cool. But, the stuff they're still spraying in the air, there's still, our water that's, contaminated and stuff like that. So all of those things. And we just sat with it like, there's really not a way to get away from all of this. Like, even if you go and you try to go off grid and all of these other things, it's like, then what? What do I do? So I understand what you're saying about that. Once you, get away, once you can get to yourself, your surroundings, your environment, and then you start looking outward. And I think then you can start to incorporate that, because if you're still stuck in your own shit, you're not even going to look at what you're going to the store to buy, right? And that every cereal company is probably owned by the same people, just different name, right?
Yeah. And I do think it's important to face your own demons first, because it's tough to fight those external demons, if you want to call them that. It's tough to fight those if you're dealing with your own internal battles. But
Yeah.
to maybe give you an optimistic perspective here, I do think there's hope. Yes, it seems like we're being attacked from every angle, but people are waking up more than ever, and it seems to be upsetting some very powerful people.
Yeah.
And we're having this conversation right now. I when I came here, I had no idea how awake you are, and it sounds like you're pretty awake. And
Yeah.
not only that, you're actually making efforts to make a garden and grow your own food and escape
Mhm.
some of those attacks. And I think by talking about these things, it will normalize and bring awareness to the reality of our situation.
Yeah.
And I think that will build momentum over time. I mean, I'm seeing it. When I started this, even before I was a health coach, I was trying to wake people up to all this, and people rolled their eyes. They called me names like conspiracy theorist. And
Right.
now a lot of those same people, they won't say this to my face, but
Right.
I can tell from the way they're behaving and posting that they've realized that I was right about a lot of those things. So people are waking up and noticing what's going on in the world.
Oh, there's definitely a change. I always tell everyone, is horrible as people, talk about COVID, and I say, for me, I look at it as it was meant for us to sit and look at things as a whole entire population of humanity. We were pushed, whether you want to say by other forces, we were pushed to look at our way of life. And we were supposed to change. And a lot of people want to go back to what was, and we can't go back to what was. A lot of us understand that, and we want the change because we know that we can't survive in that way, right? So I love it when I see more people, because you just see it, and I talk a lot about this on my show, on different, just depends on who I have on here, but we talk about it all the time, because it is that point of not just waking up and you think you know it all. It's just waking up to what's around you, looking at everything, and everything means every corner, and there's so many different levels to it. It's not just the government out to get us.
Hmm.
It's not just the corporations have doing their own thing. We can't just rely on the president to fix everything for us. It's like, I always talk about like looking at your city, who's running in your city. Start locally, pay attention to who's your mayor, who's your senator, who's your governor, all of those things. The president is one person that's barely looking at any state. They have a whole country to run, that they're barely running as it is, right?
I agree. There's more to being awake than just paying attention to a few things about health. And I would add compassion to that list, because
Mm,
a lot of people who present themselves as awake, it's like, look, I get it. I see what's going on and you don't, and you're an idiot.
Right.
I would say that person's not very awake, because that just diminishes the humanity in other people. And how awake can you really be if you're not even respecting other humans despite differences? And
Right.
okay, maybe somebody doesn't see things the way you do. Maybe even you're perfectly spot on and you're completely correct in all your beliefs about what's really going on in the world. And if you still don't have compassion for your fellow man, I don't think you get it at all. I think those forces, the same forces that are attacking us and our health, want us to hate each other. And so I think if somebody is awake and they really get it, it's like,
Mhm.
hey, okay, you don't see what's going on in the world like I do, but that's okay. I respect you. I have compassion for you. And even
Mhm.
if you don't see things like me, I still think we can get along, and maybe I'll still make my efforts the same way you're making efforts to convince me of certain things, but I think we can be more cooperative than competitive. And I think that will change a lot for everybody, both for the opposing party, who really deserves more respect than to not be treated like some idiot, but
Right.
also for me, the individual, for, again, going back to spirit, like I will be spiritually healthy if I'm not carrying around this disdain for all the people around me. I
Right.
think that is really what it means to be awake.
Oh, definitely. In the beginning, I had such a spiritual ego. I was one of those people who was like, yeah, I'm all awakened and you guys over there are stupid as hell. But you really, and I always call it lit, spirit sits you on your ass and you have aha moments along the path. And you're like, man, I don't know shit. Every time I thought I knew something, I then found out I didn't know much of
Mhm.
anything. So now I'm in just a place of, all right, lead the way. I do love that you brought up compassion because that's a huge one of just being able to sit. But that comes with what you do. Not everybody is able to sit. Like I'm like a counselor, into a lot of what I do, counseling people with traumas and stuff. So sitting and listening to people is a technique. You got to learn how to be able to listen without that, how you said, just I need to clap back and say something, but actually listen to this person and feel what they're talking about. Because, and I talk about this a lot, no matter what we say, if I haven't gone through what you've gone through, I will never truly understand what you're saying, right? I can try to empathize with what you're saying, and I can try to be like, man, that sounds like this, but I'll never truly understand it because I haven't walked that. I've only walked my path. So that compassion and just be like, you know what, regardless to how I feel, you're feeling this. You're going through this. This is what you know. And it's not about being dumb or stupid or being more smarter than the other person. I definitely agree with you on that. It's just about understanding this is where I'm at, and I only can go by what I know. Right. And I might meet someone who enlightens me on something else, but you got to be open to that. Right. That's why I love these conversations, because I'm like, I learned so much.
Me too. And actually, I think that's another important thing to hone in on, is like these conversations, because you and I are talking, we're not in the same room, but we're face to face.
Hmm.
And look, I just talked about compassion and how important it is to kind of put our ego aside. And it's not easy. I'm a high testosterone male. I have an ego. Look at me. I'm here in a red jacket talking on camera. Like, I love myself. Like, I have an ego. So
Right.
it's a struggle. But I think what makes it easier is exactly what we're doing right now. Because
Mhm.
I can feel the humanity here now. I'm talking to you in real time. But what makes it, I think, most difficult to have that compassion and to put that ego aside is when we're talking to people online through comments and just text. Because it's you don't have that same feeling. I'm talking to some words. I'm talking to letters on a
Right.
screen, and it's so much easier for me to go, wow, this guy's a total moron,
Yep.
if I don't, actually feel their presence.
Yeah.
And that, social media has a lot of benefits, but I think it's created some challenges in that way for us to be able to be more cooperative with each other. And
Oh,
so I would actually challenge people, the next time they find some comments that they disagree with, and maybe they're having those thoughts like, this guy's an idiot, try
right.
to reach out. And Oliver, if you feel like it's worth it, if you feel like, it's not actually a troll, and it's worth making this effort,
Right.
I challenge you to extend an olive branch and say, hey, it's clear we disagree on some pretty big things here, but I bet if we were to actually meet person to person or Zoom, on Zoom, we would find that we have a lot more in common than we're getting the impression with right now through stupid comments on Twitter or Facebook. I've done that myself, and it's been absolutely life-changing, because people who could have just blocked me or hated me or thought that I was the idiot, instead, we find a way to go, okay, we see things very differently, but really we also have a lot in common. And now some of those people are my best friends. So it's incredibly powerful and life-changing.
You know, it's crazy you talk about like the comments because a lot of that comes with our perception, right? Especially when you're reading it, so you hear it in whatever tone you hear it in,
Yeah.
in whatever you perceive it to be, which could be so opposite and different from what the person even intended. Because some people don't even know how to articulate something. They maybe don't know how to put it in words, so it comes off. I know I come off condescending and an asshole in a lot of things that I that I write. But when you're able to talk to someone, it is different. Then you get a different feel for them, and then that's wholly different. I try not to pay attention to too many comments just because of that. It's just like I'm not going to read into comments. I'm not going to act like I understand, and I'm not going to be offended by what people are saying, because again, I don't know how they're saying it or what they meant when they said it. It's just like I'll keep it keep it moving. But that's a good idea though. If you really care, maybe reach out to the person versus just harboring feelings about what they're saying and run off with that, because then you can create a whole scenario that doesn't even exist, right?
Even as a fun challenge, or even just out of curiosity to see what happens, because it's crazy how we can get into some kind of Twitter argument and that could ruin our whole day. Just arguing with someone we don't know at all about something that doesn't even really matter, and we're
Yeah.
holding on to it, and that affects our thinking throughout the day. Man, so many idiots out there, and like just all this negative thinking that really doesn't serve you at all. So I mean, if that's happened to you, and I know it's happened to a lot of people, see what happens if you try the opposite approach and do the challenge that I said. Reach out to just pick one person this week. And if you find yourself close to an argument, extend that olive branch, see what happens. I think you'll be pretty surprised about how it goes.
Right. I think on my pages, I get more of people who are really strong in their beliefs of religion who like to comment.
Yeah.
And when, before years ago, I would have gone toe to toe, ragging down on religion. But I'm at somewhere where I respect everyone's religion. I don't think all of them are bad. And I think they all have their truth to them. And I think you can use them and you can do beautiful things in your life with it. There's nothing wrong with it. So again, who I was very judgmental towards religion to who I am now is definitely a different, but that came with me taking a step back and not just looking at someone in a certain way, but doing a little research in those religions and seeing how they all have similar stories. They all have similar beliefs. At the end of the day, it's all to be kind and compassionate and understanding and loving, right? So if we could just move on. But I love those comments. Now I just do that. I just kind of pick their brain versus agitate them. I kind of wonder why they believe what they believe. Why do you so strongly believe what you believe? And especially if I post like a very vague post and you jump on there with all of your belief systems, I'm like, where did that come from? Where did you read that? I try to understand, like, where did you read that? And it always goes back to propaganda, the stuff that they've been seeing on TV. And you see very clearly how people are programmed. It's like this post said nothing of that, but that's what you read into it because this is what you see day to day all the time. And now you're programmed to say this is what's reality, right? It's trippy.
I think it's good and bad. We, as far as I can tell, we seem to have this innate drive to have some kind of religious views of some sort. Now, me personally, I'm not religious at all. I have my own faith and spiritual beliefs, but I'm not very religious. But I often find, and this is just my own perception, that when people don't have some sort of faith or religion in place, like, I'm talking like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, whatever it is, when they don't have something like that in place, it manifests itself in different ways. And that's when you see people who, even with scientists, they have this religious view of science where it's infallible. You had Dr. Fauci, I am the science, and people basically worshiped Dr. Fauci. But you also see the same thing in politics, and that goes both ways. Whether we're talking about Build Back Better or we're talking about MAGA, there are a lot, not everybody, for
Right.
sure, not everybody, but a lot of people, it manifests itself in a religious way, and it becomes almost like its own kind of twisted spiritual thing that's a substitute for actual real spirituality. And so I'm not criticizing that. I'm just observing. I think it's very interesting. And I do think that, when you have this religious fervor behind things, that can make it very difficult to cooperate and difficult to communicate. And I think at the very least, it's worth examining.
Oh yeah. I do feel like because everyone needs something to believe in. I regardless to what do you want to call it, you need something to believe in. Otherwise you're just lost. So whether you put that into someone, a person who's actually here, right? And you believe in them and you want them to lead you, because most people want to be led. We just know that it's the numbers show it, right? We don't have that many people who want to lead the crowds. So most people want to be led, and they're going to put their trust into who sounds the best for them right now, you know. I do think, of course, having some type of belief system will help you take that step back so that you can not put, I don't put people on pedestals. I'm like, no, no, we're all equal in here. We're all going to die. That's for sure. We're all leaving this place through death. Like that's not going to change for any of us. None of us are magically disappearing. At the end of the day, I'm like, no, we all bleed, so we're all human. Putting people on pedestals, I'm like, for what? Like giving
Right.
kudos and props to what people do in this life. Oh yeah, definitely, because there are people who have made great changes, right? But putting them on a pedestal and then everything they say is like Dr. Fauci. Everything he said, no one sat back and was like, I don't know if I should believe this, right?
Yeah,
Maybe I should
absolutely.
question this. But not everybody wants to question. Again, a lot of people just want to be told what to do. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. So how do you move away from being that type of person? If that's all you know, we just do what we're told. How do you change that?
Well, I think, and this might be a little cynical, but I think some people, that's just in their nature. I think that's how they are. You said, some people just want to follow.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very tough for people to examine some of what you just said in themselves. But again, at the same time, I do think more people are waking up. So I don't think it's everybody. I think it's actually, I think much more people than we realize are capable of being awake. It's just been tough to see that because for a very long time now, most people have been asleep and have not done self-examination and have done the easiest, most comfortable thing, which is to do what you're told. And that's in all air, not just health, not just from the government, but I think in all different areas of life. A lot of people just want to be comfortable, want to coast, and will do what they're told.
Mm.
So I think, it's a matter of being, willing to make the effort to wake up and wake up yourself, wake up this consciousness in yourself.
Right.
And for other people, I think it's going to be some kind of life event. Sometimes something happens to them and they drastically change their lives. They start to think about things differently. It's interesting sometimes, and this is unfortunate, but sometimes there's a death in the family or there's a brutal divorce. And then you meet them a few months later and they lost weight and they improved their health. And it's like, what happened there? Well, that change in the dynamic of their life, that big event that happened,
Right.
forced them to do some self-reflection. It forced them to adjust things to be, because things aren't the same. So it forced them to adjust. And so whether somebody is making the active effort and decision, I do want to improve myself, I do want to reflect. For other people, it's something that just happens to them. And, it is, I guess it is what it is.
Those lovely experiences. I don't know what life would be if we didn't have any contrast to it. I don't know that we would be able to appreciate if we don't experience some type of loss. And I know we all are searching for this perfect world, but in a perfect world, would that really would that really last for too long without needing to understand? Because we see this with the generations that don't struggle. They're way comfortable. So their problems that other people in their generation would look at and be like, what's your problem? You're crying for nothing, you know? But those are their serious problems. That's what they're going through because that's all they know. So the easier it gets, I wonder sometimes would humanity be able to sustain that? Or would it just eventually recycle back to some devastation because we need to understand it in some way? I don't know. Who knows? Anything else you want them to know about what you do? I know I have to wrap this up.
Well, check me out. My website is mikevera.com. That's where you'll find both Avantia Health Optimization, which is my health coaching business. You can try it out for $1 for the first session. You'll also find Healthy and Awake podcast there, where I have conversations much like the one we had today with, as I mentioned, a lot of medical doctors who are really challenging the status quo and sometimes even putting their careers on the line to say some of these sorts of things. So mikevera.com.
Definitely. I will have his links in the description. So wherever you're listening or watching, his links will be in the description to make it easier for you to go check him out. And as always, you guys, until next time, bye.